Rah, we're back.
We are back, episode 7. Pretty cool topic today.
Yeah, game day nutrition with one of the best in the business.
I know, game day nutrition. It's a question we get asked quite a lot on social media and people sending in emails. And what should I be eating the day of my event or the day of my sport? And who better to discuss this topic with than Sally Walker. Sally is the senior dietitian at the New South Wales Institute of Sport. She's an accredited practicing dietitian, an advanced sports dietitian, and exercise physiologist. I think I could keep going all day with all these qualifications. A well-respected member of the Dietitians Association of Australia, and also the Sports Dietitians Australia, and also part of the Australian Olympic Dietitians team.
Wow.
What a list of one of the most respected people in the world of nutrition. And
so what you're trying to say is if we want to know about game day nutrition, Sally's going to have the answers.
Sally's the one with all the answers. So we'll get Sally up on the big screen now, and we'll kick into it.
Cool.
Hey. Can you see us okay, Sally?
The half of your face.
It's probably better if you don't see any of our face. We're not really pretty. So as long as everyone can see you, it's all good. Pretty broad topic, and we probably don't have you for that long. So we do get this question quite a bit. We've got a bit of a focus on some core sports here at Musashi, like basketball, rugby league, AFL, some MMA, mixed martial arts, and soccer. So they're probably the sports that we'll be sort of concentrating on when we're talking about game day nutrition. I guess the place to kick off is when does game day nutrition start? Is it the day of the game or the event, or is it the day before?
Every day they're training.
Every day they're training.
Game day nutrition is just a continuation of what you're doing around training. So the types of foods you're eating, what you're familiar with. Nothing should be a day of eating for competition that's any different to what you practice and you put into place around your training. And that's what training is. You're training what sits well on your stomach and what helps you recover and what gives you enough energy to get through your training. So then as soon as you get to competition, just hit next and you continue to do the same thing. And that's a really big misconception that people need to get around because it is a really common question. What do I eat on game day and what do I eat on competition day? And the golden rule is really just never try anything new on competition day. If you're eating a bowl of cereal every morning before you go out to train and then get to game day and suddenly think you need to eat bacon and eggs, it's not so much about the nutrition, that's about the habits and behaviours and things which are surrounding that. So really looking at consistency with your training, and that you're not just practicing skills and technique with the sports that you play, you're practicing what supports that training through the food that you're eating. So it comes more about timing and planning on what you should eat for game day, not so much what should I eat. So what should be familiar.
Okay.
That might change a little bit.
You see it quite a bit, actually. You see athletes try to get a bit innovative on the day, and they're taking in all these different, there could be supplements and all these different foods that they think they should be, they've never had before, and it can actually severely affect performance. So I like what you said. You just it's just another day. You should treat it as just another.
But you can kind of understand, like the pressure of competing and the pressure of a big game. You might want to, try something different to try and get to the next level, but really that's the opposite of what you should be doing.
Yeah, exactly. And look, a lot of people.
The training will taper leading into a competition as well. So there's the other, I've got a carb load, I've got to load up and eat so much more. But if you're eating consistently and your training's coming down, you've got an increase anyway without having to have a huge amount extra. And then that really depends on the type of event that you've got as to how long it is, or whether it's a sprint event or endurance event. As to how long that process. So there are still methods that need to be in place to structure the types of foods you're eating, but certainly flipping it on its head and just starting new things and doing things you've never done before is just not the place to be.
You talked about carb loading, which is great. You brought that up because that was sort of one of the questions that we have from someone here in the office that's actually a long distance swimmer, and they were sort of asking about carb loading because a lot of their fellow competitors and their friends are doing this big carb load the day before the event. And he was saying he gets to the day of the event, he's done this big carb load, and some days he can feel a bit sluggish. So is there a limit to this carb load, or like you said, you don't even need to carb load because your training is tapering off, so your nutrient demands aren't as high?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do need to make sure your stores are saturated. So the term carb load might be the wrong term to use, but you do need to sort of build your stores up. Again, it depends so much on the type of event that you've got. If it's a less than 60-minute game of something that's not that high intensity, you probably don't need to carb load. If it's, a 3-hour swim, absolutely, you want to sort of load your stores up. But it's a finite resource, the amount of carb stores you can hold on to before you need to sort of be replenishing and replacing them throughout the event that you've got. So it's not as if, if I just eat till I explode, that'll do me for the whole time, because there's a limit in how much you can take on.
So if you were like an endurance athlete and your event does take sort of 2-3 hours, maybe even longer, when does that carb load start? Or when do you start sort of increasing the calories to make sure that your glycogen stores are full?
Yeah, and you sort of want to practice this in past competitions too, but sort of 4 to 5 days out, it will be different from people. It's different for women as opposed to men in how much carb stores they can have. A point you were making before about feeling heavy is you do need to sort of make that trade-off, in that if you've stored up heaps of carbs and a gram of carbohydrate holds on to 3 grams of fluid, so you've got an extra 2 kilos of body weight going into like an AFL game or into a big swim, then that's going to fatigue you sooner because you're so much heavier to be able to pull your weight around. So it is quite a fine balance and needs to be individualized in the strategy in how much you can actually take on, so it doesn't then have detrimental performance effects because you're following, the textbook methods of I need to eat 10 grams per kilogram of body weight, because then that might cause gut issues and just feeling sluggish and really full. So,
you with like a little
how much you can take on, and that's why it's probably better to space it out over 2 to 3 days to slowly take it on, rather than say the night before you have a massive bowl of pasta and you're just full of carbs and you can't sleep and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a good point. So you're sort of anywhere 3 to 5 days out, incrementally increasing the carbohydrates maybe in each meal, just slowly, so your body's sort of...
It's not like it's massive carbs all the time. It might be that you have some yogurt with some muesli in it, or at dinner you have an extra bread roll or potato with it. So it's sort of like a little bit extra each meal, like of a carb serve. So it's slowly starting to build so you can stay on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of having sort of a longer run-in to be able to do that.
And as far as game day, we'll call it game day. Dhiren's about to sneeze.
Excuse me.
Got that. You didn't sneeze into your elbow.
No.
That's a fine for Dhiren.
Yeah.
So game day. So you've got sports that take place basically first thing in the morning. There's a lot of sports. Surf Life Saving even kicks off sort of 6-7 o'clock in the morning. And then most of your adult-related ball sports are sort of lunchtime onwards. So on game day, how much does meal timing matter? And the amount that you eat matter, or is that sort of down to the individual?
A lot of people, ask, should I eat half an hour before? Should I eat 10 minutes before?
Sorry, Dhiren.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying, everybody's like very, very particular about how soon before activity they should eat, and it's a big unknown for a lot of people. Some people like, do I eat 3 hours before? Do I eat 10 minutes before?
Yeah.
People are really a bit unsure about it.
And this is where coming up with some good strategies ahead of time is important to, with training and practicing what you eat, to go, look, if I have something in my stomach 2 hours before I run around, I'll be sick. Or there's some athletes that could eat a whole meal and jump straight to the pool and then be fine. So everyone's so different how they respond. So having an awareness around your training times to know what your limits are, to know, well, I have to have my last main meal 3 hours before we start. And there's a couple of things that a lot of people forget is, when does your warm-up start? So you sort of want to work backwards from your warm-up, because with some athletes, say a sprint athlete, they're only running for a minute, but then warm-ups will go for sort of 45 minutes. So that's quite a lot of energy demand there, when they should be starting and thinking about, freeing up their digestive system, things like that.
So how long does it take to free up the digestive system? I know it's probably different for everyone and depends on sort of different people and the foods that you're eating. But just as a general guideline for people, is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours?
4 hours. Yeah, 3 to 4 hours should be okay for a main meal. And generally working backwards from the time, I like to say, to sum it up as sort of a template, 24 hours from when the warm-up starts. So if the warm-up starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or that's when you need to be functioning and active, 2 o'clock the day before, then you might start thinking about, all right, I'll have an extra carb afternoon tea and some more carbs at dinner. I'll have my breakfast, and then maybe have your breakfast as the last main meal, and then so 2, work back from that, so 11 o'clock, I'll have something which is a bit lighter, it's not as heavy. And when I say heavy, foods that are lower in fibre, so they don't sit in the gut, and foods that are lower in fat, because they also take a long time to break down. So you might have something like a yogurt or a couple of pieces of toast. So you're having something to boost up your carbohydrate stores without sort of fill a large volume in your stomach. So if you had a game at 2 o'clock and you wanted an early lunch, it's probably actually not that great to have a big bowl of salad at 11:30, because it's just going to sit. It's that extra volume for not a lot of energy. So game day often doesn't have the format of a regular day of breakfast, snack, lunch, snack and dinner. Sometimes, especially if you've got like a round robin sort of situation where you're playing multiple times, it might be a day of snacks. Be familiar with what those snacks are. And a lot of people, the thing that happens a lot is games that are throughout the middle of the day, so sort of between 11 and 3, people get really awkward of, when do I have lunch? I'll just have breakfast and I won't eat, and then they don't eat anything till like 5 o'clock at night, and they're a write-off for the day sort of thing. So working backwards and saying, well, do I need to have an early lunch and then go into the game? Do I need to have breakfast and a snack? Like that all is what forms your sort of nutrition plan for the day, so that you're eating sort of get your game start time, and then sort of every 3 hours before that, you want to be eating something to build up to it, and the volume and density of the meal to go down as it gets closer to the competition time.
So we're talking about carbohydrates, and obviously that's the main...
It's exactly the same as every day, and then put all these rules in.
I know.
As far as what you fill your plate with, that should be the same. Definitely when your timing is around. That's why it's good to have a format and like a template. So then if your game starts at 4, well then 4 o'clock's my anchor. I'm going to base my meals backwards from that, rather than have your day of when I usually eat breakfast and usually eat lunch and just hope that it fits in.
Yeah. And look, if you're competing in a serious sport like the Olympics and you know what sort of time that you're going up, a lot of your training leading into that event would replicate the time that you're competing at as well. So you would get your body adjusted to when you're eating meals based on the time of your event. A lot of the people we talk to are just your sort of
weekend warriors
style people that are playing soccer or footy on the weekend. And I mean, I used to see this a lot when I was playing rugby league. You get to the game, your teammates are there, they all straight to the canteen to get a pie or a sausage sandwich. What are the types of food that we should be eating What are good sources of energy as far as carbohydrates? And also, probably secondary to that, what should we be avoiding?
Yeah. It's again sort of similar foods that you should be eating all the time, sort of healthier foods, because when activity starts, blood flow moves away from the stomach. So if you've had a really dense meal, a meal that's heavy in fats and volume as well, also quite a big meal, blood flow is moving away from the stomach, so that food's just going to sit there. So if you've sort of run off to play a game of soccer and you've still got food in your belly, that's going to cause stitches and discomfort and that sort of thing. So the type of foods does play different, because you sort of don't want to necessarily create that. So having foods which are, again, carbohydrates which are lower in fibre, leading into competition, it might be great, day to day for morning tea, but having more of like a white bread sandwich with some jam on it leading into competition is actually good, because it breaks down, releases the carbohydrates into the blood, and it doesn't leave that sort of volume in your stomach.
So easier to digest.
That you want to eat day to day, you want whole grain, high fibre choices when you make them. More lower fibre options when you're sort of in that sort of 4 or 5 hour run into competition. And if you've got a carb load for like a 3-hour endurance swim, if you've got to have 600 grams carb for the day, that's actually a lot of food to eat. Like, it's hard to eat. So if you have more easier to digest stuff, you get hungrier, so you want to eat more. So there's sort of strategies behind that. But, yeah, that varies on person to person.
And I guess, from person to person, there's all these new dietary I guess requirements that everybody has now, and you've seen the emergence of a lot of new diets and behaviors that people follow, like vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, keto, intermittent fasting, all these new lifestyles. How have you seen that in some of the athletes that you work with, and what are some strategies that you've kind of been using to adapt to these?
You certainly can't force people to eat something if it goes against sort of moral or religious or health beliefs. So we're not there to sort of force a perfect diet, but that's why working more with just the energy systems of the body and sort of coming down to science a bit more, that if you're doing a really high intensity activity, like sprint cycling, say, that's going to use up protein and carbohydrates. And surface sort of blood glucose that's in the system. So if you're having a high fat diet, or you're fasting and there's no circulating carbohydrates there, then you do need to have that conversation to say, well, is this diet actually supporting what your training goals are?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and they want to agree to both things, that one of them might not work as successfully. So it's having that discussion to put it back on the athlete. If it's a health issue in that they're celiac and they can't eat certain carbohydrates, then it's just still saying, well, your body needs carbohydrates. It's just that we can't get them from these sources. We'll get them from these other sources instead. So it's finding alternatives within the boundaries that we've got to meet the energy demands that the system has at that time.
And another question we get a bit is like game day nutrition, right? Obviously, we're using carbohydrates as our main source of energy. Do I still need to eat protein leading up into my event? That most people are aware that after their game or their event, they need to consume protein for recovery. But is protein important on game day leading up to the event? Does it matter that much?
Yeah. You still want them in the main meals and meals leading up to have some protein, especially depending on the nature of the sport too. If it's quite sort of high impact sport, and there will be a lot of muscle breakdown in the sport, in the game, it can sort of prevent further muscle breakdown if you do have some circulating protein in the system. It may cause digestive issues in that it can be harder to break down, so it mightn't be that in the snack immediately before competition. That's where you might just get sort of a carb top up. But certainly that 3 to 4 hours out, having a snack then with some or having a main meal or a snack then with some protein in it would be advantageous just for turning muscle mass and turning protein over. It may not be building muscle mass, but it's more serving before activity and before training, including protein in your intake, serves as sort of a way to preserve your muscle mass that's there, more so than like build it up, which is what people think for afterwards. But similar with having carbohydrates, if you've got enough carbohydrate stores in prior to training and prior to your competition, it's got to burn through that before it starts burning through a lot of muscle mass too. So it's going to conserve what muscle mass you've got for longer when you are well fueled. So having more carbohydrates and still some protein present is important. So they're probably the two main ones to get is some protein and carbs, probably more so than fat. And
as far as carbohydrate sort of stores within the body, I know everyone's different, and each sport's going to utilize different levels. If you've got sort of full stores of glycogen, carbohydrates within the body, how long is that going to last us if we're sort of playing like a game of footy or a game of soccer or something like that? Is there a certain point that we get to and we just like, oh, I can feel it. I'm now switching over to fats, or like, is there a time that we've got out of these?
It's about between 90 minutes and 2 hours. Peak glycogen stores will run out if you are doing sort of high to moderate intensity stuff. If you're and that's when you sort of shift to, well, if I'm going that long, my intensity is going to drop, so I'll allow more oxygen in, so then that will shift me to start burning fat stores up. So your body sort of morphs you through, hang on, these carbs are going to run out, so I need a backup plan. So I can't keep going at full pelt, so I'll slow you down so we can get some oxygen in and we can start to utilize fats. So if you want to maintain that high intensity, if you get sort of 60 minutes in and have some carbohydrates through the food or beverage to top that up a little bit, then that means your intensity can stay higher for longer to sort of conserve that a bit. Having said that, as I mentioned before, blood flow moves away from the gut, so there's only a limited amount you can take in during competition. It's about 60 grams of carbohydrates an hour, and then if you get a combination of glucose and fructose, then 90 grams an hour when you're doing sort of really long endurance events, so marathons and things like that, to sort of keep topping up carbohydrates during. That also maintains a residual blood flow to the gut. So a lot of people, if they train really hard and then they eat, they feel really sick afterwards. That's because all the blood flow's gone away and you eat something and then it goes back and it's like warp. So everything flows back in. So having some carbohydrates during training, if it's longer than competition, if it's longer than say an hour, will keep your intensity up, keep your performance up, and it will also sort of maintain that carbohydrate flow to the system rather than having nothing, being like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out, give me something, and then feeling sick as a result of that. So.
And what about we've looked at sort of macronutrients. What about micronutrients? Is there any that are important on game day? I know a lot of endurance athletes are taking in a lot of sort of magnesium and sodium, electrolytes,
amino acids, vitamins.
Yeah. So should they be sort of getting in or concentrating on these micronutrients as well, or are they sort of taken care of in our food choices?
Nutrients are certainly important, and it's important to have sort of magnesium, electrolytes and things. There's not as much of a dose response with macronutrients. They're a bit more long-term build-ups, as much as you've got the water-soluble ones which turn over quite regularly. That's why when you are eating, you want to eat well and have balanced meals so you can keep topping up a lot of your nutrients. But ultimately, if you've increased your intake to meet the energy demand for the competition, you'll have exposure to those micronutrients in doing that anyway. So it does depend on the climate. If it's particularly humid, so you're sweating quite a lot, then there may be a need to increase electrolytes and magnesium, things like that. But that's not a blanket one. That would certainly depend on the individual and how they're responding and how they're reacting. But if you're at a point where you're flat and tired, a micronutrient's not going to do anything to give this extra boost than what a macronutrient.
And you touched on hydration there. How should we be increasing our sort of water intake the day before, the week of, or the day of? How important is hydration for performance?
It's similar to food in the same way we want to slowly increase the amount of carbohydrates we're eating. You want to do that with fluid. So you might be drinking an extra cup at different meal times or different times to drink, and drinking more frequently during the day over time in that sort of 2 to 3 days lead up. Again, just so you know, drinking, skull heaps of fluid, you throw out your balance of fluid and electrolytes, so you need to urinate a lot of it off when you're about to run out on the field. So you also don't want to be thinking, I need to drink more. You drink a lot before bed, and then you've got up and you've had to go to the toilet 2 or 3 times during the night, and you've had a poor sleep, and then that's going to impact performance too. So a lot of these strategies, they've got to be done with caution, because if done too much, then they can have a negative effect. So you need to sort of balance in the practicalities of life and lifestyle, and how that's going to present, so it doesn't, fix one problem and create another one. So being able to drink more frequently and more regularly, monitoring your urine colour to see whether you are hydrated in the morning and at the end of the day. So you've got a bit of a gauge in the days leading up. So if you've got really dark urine 2 days beforehand at night time, then the next day focus on your hydration, start to get that back, have a bit of a judge to see whether your urine's clear at the end of the day before competition day, so you know that you're sort of a bit more prepared.
Makes sense. What should we be? I know you've got sort of general guidelines how much water we should be taking in daily. It's minimum 2 liters or whatever it is. But for athletes, people participating in sport, do they need? Obviously, if they're a heavy sweater, they will probably need more hydration, more water. Is there an average for athletes to aim for, to shoot for per day?
Per hour, per day?
Yeah.
For rehydration, you want to look at 10 mils per kilogram of body weight. If you are sort of finding that your urine's quite dark and you need to rehydrate to sort of get an amount on top of regular drinking. So there's your regular, just habitual drinking. And then if you're dehydrated, to have extra on top of that. So that extra is that 10 mils per kilogram body weight to be able to say, well, I'm definitely hydrated. If you're a heavy sweater and you've lost a lot of fluid and you just keep drinking water on top of water, it's going to be not as impactful, because you're just going to wee a lot of it out, because the body can't maintain that hydration to actually retain the fluid. So it just releases it. So that's when you would need some form of electrolyte, or even just a salty meal, a meal that's high in sodium, to be able to actually hold on to that fluid. So it's not always also just about drink more, because you might drink 6 litres a day, but then weep 3 litres of it out, because the concentration of electrolytes and fluid in your body isn't at a point that it can retain it.
Because people, might not be aware that you also lose quite a lot of electrolytes in sweat, not just water, of course.
Yep.
And I like what you said about your habitual drinking. Your thirst is a good regulator for most people, right? So just adding, say I'm 78 kilos, 10 mils per body weight, 780 mils. That's it's doable.
Easily doable. And this is just a question from sort of my past as well. Half time in footy, soccer, whatever sport it is, you see a variety of different things. A lot of people wheel out the oranges. I've seen jelly beans floating around. I've seen teams that just do nothing.
Some baking sometimes.
Yeah, the event only lasts for sort of 80, 90 minutes. Do they really need anything at half time to sort of get them through the second half? Or is that a bit of a myth?
Maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental, but someone like, you'll be fine.
Be judgmental.
Yeah.
It depends how hard and high impact the sport is. So your kids' game of netball probably don't need much at half time. But the bigger sports like AFL, which the games can go for sort of 3 hours, then definitely you want to be looking at something at
And should it be a
half-time.
fluid?
Again, sort of more of a food product, that can be hard to actually utilize that carbohydrate because it's sitting in your stomach and it's not actually in the system. That's why things like gels are quite popular, because they can be absorbed a lot quicker and actually be in the bloodstream to utilize the blood glucose. Things like lollies, which happens a lot, is that people eat lollies because they like them and they're easy to eat. Because they're so high in sugar, and similar things like soft drinks and things like that, yes, it's sugar, but the concentration of sugar is so high, it actually pulls fluid into the gut to dilute that sugar. So in essence, it can inhibit rehydration. It may give you some glucose increase, but it can have detrimental effects on your stomach function, hydration, and being able to get that energy that you are eating into the system. So having more formulated products which will provide a glucose as opposed to a sucrose sugar is more beneficial. So it's not just a matter of, oh, have this, it's sugar, and sugar will give you energy. That can actually be detrimental at that time that the body is active to be able to actually utilize that. And then things like fruits, oranges and things like that, even having fruit like a watermelon that's sort of lower fiber, so you wouldn't want a really high fiber fruit at halftime if you were having it as a snack option. And things like bananas are good because they're higher in glucose as opposed to sucrose, and things like watermelon grapes because they've got not as much skin on them and they're less fiber, so they're more likely to hydrate and give some additional energy.
That's great info.
Yeah, it's not essential, and it will depend on the person. Some people sort of won't want to touch it, so they might just get a carbohydrate top up from a beverage or a sports drink. Whereas some people do like to, some athletes I've had, they're like, I just want to like bite down on something until I eat because it's sort of such a long time between meals.
Bananas and oranges, pretty popular choice for most people. So they're not doing too bad of a job, it sounds like, but it's individual. Yeah.
What about these sports that kick off first thing in the morning? People are getting up, they're racing to the event or racing to their sport. They don't have a lot of time to eat. Do we get them to eat? Do we try and get them to have something?
You wouldn't force it. That's all part of practice as well. But like I said, it's 24 hours from the start time. So if you're starting at 7 a.m., you want to start your loading process at 7 a.m. the day before. So as opposed to starting at 2 p.m., you've had extra time in the day to increase your carbohydrate stores. You might have a big breakfast the day before. So you're putting your glycogen stores in the day before the competition, and you've had that whole day to do that. So then when you wake up in the morning, because you've got an early competition, you may only need a banana and a piece of toast and something quite light just to engage those glycogen stores, rather than getting up and having a full breakfast and being really full and having sort of really high fiber foods, that sort of thing. So waking up really early, it may be sort of like your pre-competition snack, because the meal that you had the night before is your your last meal.
Should that meal the night before be a... Sorry, Sally. Should that meal the night before, could you push that back to be a little bit later, or does that not really matter too much?
No, you can still eat at a similar time. You don't want to push it back too later so that it impacts your sleep and you can't get to sleep.
Good point.
So eating quite a big meal and then going to sleep, you're still on and awake because your stomach's digesting that food even though you're in bed. So it might impact your sleep that way. I mean, competitions that are really late in the day, so if you've got a competition that starts at 4 or 5 p.m., you may not have to glycogen load and carbs, like increase your carb intake the day before, because you've got the whole day to prepare for it. You can have breakfast, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea, like there's all these opportunities to start to load up your stores before you need to act. So the early morning competitions are just sort of the flip side of that, and you're just using the day before rather than the day of to increase your
It's almost like cramming for an exam, you know. Some people, like, if you're not adequately fueled, you feel like you just need to get it in before. getting on the field.
I used to pay other people to do my exams for me. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk a little bit about caffeine. The caffeine usage amongst athletes has increased a lot over the last sort of 10 years. And look, I'm selective when I use caffeine before training or an event. But what are the top athletes doing? If they're a sprinter or a football player or whatever, is caffeine beneficial for these guys to use before their event?
Yeah, I mean, some of them have trialled it to know when they peak. It becomes tricky when it's multi-day events and the competitions are later at night, then they can't sleep, and then they have to back up again. So you do have to be mindful of how much that's going to impact sleeping patterns. A lot of athletes do use it because it is quite a good dose response of feeling better, but it also helps utilize carbohydrate stores as well. So it's a stimulus to feel more alert, but it does actually help access energy better as well. It's having enough time to let it peak at the right time. So you might have your caffeine, but it's generally not till sort of 30 to 45 minutes later that you're feeling the impacts of it, depending on the source that you have it. So if you have it in sort of more of a supplement form, like a tablet, that may take longer than some sublingual caffeine strip or a caffeine gum, which is quite instant. So the way you access the caffeine will vary depending on, will have an impact on when you sort of feel the full stimulus of the caffeine. So say if someone in AFL, you go, oh, I'm really flat, I need a boost, I'm going to take this caffeine tablet in the last quarter, kind of renders itself ineffective because by the time it kicks in, the game's going to be finished. So, understanding when you're going to peak is.
And is there a recommended dosage of caffeine? I know there's a lot of products out there these days that are absolutely loaded with caffeine.
And people have quite different tolerances as well.
They do.
Really
so is there a...
That goes back to, if you're a habitual caffeine drinker, so you're having coffee regularly and you have caffeine in your system quite a lot, you will need, like sugar, the more sugar you have, the more sugar you want. So if you're used to caffeine, you need a bigger dose to sort of really feel that impact. So if we keep sort of layering onto that and people get used to it, so I've got to have more, and they get used to it, so I've got to have more, that's when you start to really get in a risky area of having more to increase it. And it may be more of a tactic to say, well, can you just not have any caffeine for 2 to 3 days beforehand, so that when you are having that caffeine amount, rather than have exorbitant serves and amounts of caffeine, you'll feel more of an impact from the amount that you are having, sort of 100 milligrams or whatever it might be.
So kind of a lot of people use that, train low, compete high strategy that, don't have any caffeine, then on comp day might have more caffeine than they typically do.
Do you use caffeine like that for a deadlifting comp or for a powerlifting comp?
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
For powerlifting, for sure. Like,
Yep.
The caffeine kind of gets you going and
Yep.
Definitely hypes me up. So, but everybody's different. Some people steer clear.
Yeah, some people
But
can't handle
some
it.
people can't live without it.
Would you go off it for a couple of days before?
Yeah, I would. I typically don't use like a pre-workout every single day, just because you'd build up a tolerance quite quickly. But I try to use a pre-workout once or twice a week, heavy sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's not a reliance on it. And that's why I think people use it poorly, is if they're a bit flat, they're like, I'll just have some caffeine, it'll make me feel better. When really, if you read between the lines there, it may be just that they haven't eaten enough and they just genuinely need energy. So it's a stimulus, but the thing that's making the motor go is still, carbohydrates and things like that. It just turns the key a little bit more to have that caffeine.
It's definitely, it has its place. It's a performance-enhancing aid, but it's not the foundation. You got to get your macronutrients and everything like that sorted, for sure.
Yeah.
What are we missing, Sally? Is there anything extra that you wanted to add that we haven't asked you today or discussed? Is there anything important that the listeners should sort of know?
I guess the one thing you kind of touched on was, the difference between a few different types of sports. So maybe you could elaborate on the different strategies between, like, say, endurance sports versus power and explosive sports, and how somebody's nutrition might look different on game day, or even just leading up to those kind of sports.
Yeah, as I say, it's sort of just the energy systems will change. So the longer they go, the more oxygen is present, the more that they will be able to utilize fat stores more. Whereas if people have high impact sort of sports, they're not, like, especially anaerobic sports, powerlifting and sprinting, that sort of thing, they're not using up, real lot of carb stores either. That will happen in the recovery phase. They'll still be accessing their carb stores because it's such high impact. They've done so much muscle damage, so their energy usage is sort of more in the recovery phase rather than that instant energy. So understanding the type of sport really does make a difference to how much you need, what your recovery strategies like, as opposed to your preparation strategies. So I guess, if anything, it's just highlighting the need to have a strategy to apply what you're familiar with eating to when you're having it, based on what your competition is. And that doesn't mean you need to be an elite person, an elite athlete, to have a plan. If you're a weekend warrior and you just want to, try hard and do your best, you can still come up with a plan and have a plan in place to be able to do that. So you enjoy it and you feel well, rather than just be like, oh, no, it's not important. I'm not elite. Like, it's just a bit of fun. And then you wipe yourself out for the rest of the weekend because you're so tired because you just nailed yourself in your sport. So I guess that's probably also another key point is, you don't have to be elite to have a nutrition plan.
No, we talk about that a lot here. Doesn't matter what level you are, whether it's C grade under 14s basketball like Hal plays, or you're the elite of the elite. Everyone needs a fuel and recovery nutrition plan.
And the underlying principles are the same, no matter what level of sport you're at. And understanding these underlying principles rather than, nitpicking the details is probably the thing to know. Yeah,
look, obviously the lower down in grade or whatever, the more social the competition is, you're not taking it as seriously, but you still want to perform. You're not going out there to lose. You're not going out there to perform poorly. Yep. You still want to perform well and win the game.
Just to impact your health, to sort of have impacts on your digestion, increased injury risk because you're under-fueled, and then you're trying to play dehydration, heat exhaustion. They're all things that can impact health long-term if you don't sort of think about them. Think about your conditions. Think about, where are we playing this week? Oh, we're playing in that place which is really bloody hot inside, and I'm going to sweat like pigs. So maybe I should increase drinking a little bit more. So it's really just having an awareness of what's about to happen to sort of troubleshoot for what might happen as a result of that. So it's just thinking ahead and planning for it, rather than getting to the day after and going, God, why do I do this? Why do I play sport when I feel so rotten afterwards? People be active, not.
Yeah, exactly.
The better you perform, the better you enjoy it a lot of the time as well. So, if you're not paying attention to your nutrition, you maybe not giving yourself the best chance of, even if you're just playing for fun.
Yeah. And look, any listeners that want to find out more about sort of nutrition for your sport, I know New South Wales Institute of Sport, where Sally is a lead dietitian, they put out a lot of great sports nutrition articles on Facebook and Instagram. So I encourage everyone to go and sort of follow New South Wales Institute of Sport. I know I check there regularly for sort of the latest nutritional updates and what's going to benefit me. So go and follow New South Wales Institute of Sport.
Yeah, with the competition schedule and what to do 24 hours out and what to do if it's a multi-stage event and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, you guys cover a lot of sports over there, so there's a lot of information for those sort of individual sports. Before you go, I wanted to ask, it's been a crazy, crazy year, and especially with the postponing of the Olympics, you guys have sort of, what's the correspondence been like, and how crazy has it been for you guys? You're all sort of...
It just stopped. It was a pretty stressful time, and everything was still up in the air, and everyone's got an opinion on social media and everything, whether you should cancel it or not, but they don't realise that people's lifestyles and jobs and things were at the other end of it. So it was a welcome relief that it was to be postponed and not cancelled. And it's okay for me as part of the headquarters performance support team, because a lot of the work that I've done with Gary, the other dietitian, we can just sort of press pause on that, go back and reflect and review and, fine tune it a little bit more. It's the poor old athletes that I feel sorry for who have to do all that training again. Unfortunately, you can't just pause fitness. You can't just, cash in the training camps that you had to be able to get yourself to peak condition that they were at, ready for trials and ready to qualify. So, it's a hard ask for them to pick themselves up and to have to go through that sort of final year pre-Olympics again, which is a really hard year, but they're resilient people. So now that we know more, we can provide sort of a more specific environment for them when we do get to Tokyo. So we can provide a sort of more specific and a better service. So hopefully it all works out for the best in the end and is a good event for everyone to look forward to bring everyone back together again.
So you're in constant contact with these athletes, sometimes daily. Are they, a lot of these guys obviously still training, they're doing stuff from home, strength and conditioning and cardio and things like that, but a lot of them probably wouldn't have access to facilities where they can train in their given sport. Is that the case? Are they, some of them, like, I don't know.
It's been quite hard. A lot of the athletes initially, when it all happened and the games were postponed, they just went on a break to just give them time to process it. So, they'd lost an experience, they'd lost an opportunity, they've lost a bit of their identity, because that's what they do. They train and they compete. So there was a period of just grief and acceptance that they had to go through. So giving them space to be able to come to terms with that and get their head around it was the important first step. And in that time we were looking at, well, how do we set them up to get their environment? So strength and conditioning, they've all done a really good job with setting themselves up with really clever ways to be able to continue to train at home. It's the athletes, specifically the water sports with all pools closed. It's probably the longest some swimmers have never been in a pool in their life, because they're always swimming. So that's been tough for them, because you can't just say to a swimmer, oh, we'll just go out and run as your cardio, because that's going to do damage to them, because it's not built that way. So not all sports are transferable to just get them to ride a bike if they can't do something else. So it's been a challenge, but just trying to maintain sort of a base fitness to be able to have them in a position that when facilities do open up again, that they're ready to go, rather than lose that time completely and have to start from scratch. So.
Yeah. Now all these different, all these different sports, all these different energy systems, all these different diets, all these different caffeine patterns, like Sally's been talking about, and now this on top of it, the unknown. These athletes, it must be a tough time for them. But I'm sure, lucky they've got access to great people like you and the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and I'm sure you guys are steering them in the right direction with some great advice. And I guess you guys have to adapt as much as they do.
Yeah. And it's been sort of a good time to revisit some base messages too about just emotional eating and boredom eating and how to prep, like how to do the shopping and how to cook, and sort of just basic lifestyle skills that everyone's too busy to think about when they're training. But now that they've got more time, they're at home more to be able to practice new dishes and to watch their parents or their families cooking, to be able to learn from them. So it's just trying to find opportunities that, they can utilize now. So then when they do get back to training, they know how to cook a meal in bulk and freeze it and that sort of thing, which is then going to help their training because food's more available and accessible. So it's trying to connect where they're at now with where they'll be in the future, so they can understand it, so they can see that what they're doing now still plays a role in their performance, even though it's so different to how they're used to seeing performance. So it's connecting the dots for them that way.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting Olympics, and I think the country's going to do the best of the ones that have adapted the best to what's going on currently. Sally, I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, and especially leading up to the Olympics next year and all the athletes that you look after and all the amazing work that you do with the New South Wales Institute of Sport. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on today and enlightening us with some information on what to do for game day nutrition.
Thanks so much, Sally.
Anytime.
And we'll chat to you again soon.
All right. Look forward to it. Bye, guys.
Cool.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks.
All right. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Who better to give advice than
Yeah.
Sally?
Exactly.
Working with the Olympic team, got the call up to work with the Olympic team. So, and we work very closely with the New South Wales Institute of Sport at Musashi.
And I guess, earlier in the year when we met with her, she was about to go to Tokyo, and must be a crazy time with all of these athletes. So
Yeah, it's insane. So I guess we've sort of covered everything or not everything, but all the basics in regards to nutritional advice when it comes to foods. What about supplements?
Yeah.
I mean, this is our game.
Yeah.
So what are some of the supplements that people can use that can benefit them on game day? What are the tried, proven, tested supplements? I know there's so many out there.
Well, we kind of talked about caffeine and things like that. So a big go-to for a lot of athletes, including myself and, a lot of everyday gym junkies is a pre-workout, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people don't like caffeine and things like that, but there's few things that you can have that give you an immediate effect that you can, realize that it's working.
Yeah.
And, there are some super dodgy pre-workouts out there. Back in the day, there were pre-workouts with amphetamines and things like that in them, but
Not even that far back in the day.
not even that far back in the day. But our pre-workout's legit. I made it.
Yeah.
Putting that out there. But
You look for good functional pre-workouts that are good functional ingredients and don't rely solely on heavy stimulants. And I see it so much, and I'm not going to sit here and bag out any other brands out there because it's personal preference. Buy whatever you want.
some people want those amphetamines pre-workout, and
Which-
you know.
Crazy. And look, it's probably going to increase focus and you're probably going to have a killer workout, but over time it's going to have some sort of impact, adrenal fatigue potentially.
All kinds of things. You
yeah.
know, some of these supplements you're not even sure what's in them.
No.
Even the manufacturers aren't even sure what's in them. But
No.
we make our things very legit, and all of our key supplements are Informed Sport certified.
Yeah.
So pre-workout before, it's a go-to for a lot of people. But then we have things like the intro workout, which you can have during a workout.
So intra-workouts, it's a blend of
It's a blend of
essential amino acids.
electrolytes, some beetroot juice, and you just one scoop in your drink bottle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit different to a typical electrolyte hydration powder, where it's these amino acids from protein. Remember, if you think about protein as a book, amino acids are like letters of the alphabet. So you're not getting that digestive discomfort that Sally talked about by having a full protein meal. You're absorbing amino acids a lot quicker. Keep your amino acid levels sufficient during training, so helps prevent that muscle breakdown and helps support your recovery.
Another couple of supplements that I'm a big fan of is obviously creatine because the effects that it gives, the research and the evidence that we have that it's probably the most researched and tested sports supplement on the market. Creatine's definitely a go-to for me.
It's super effective, and there's few things that have been shown to be such a good performance enhancing aid except for creatine. Like it's almost in a league of its own, and it's something that you get naturally from meat, but typically most people don't get this kind of level if you're supplementing it.
Yep.
Also, vegetarians, vegans, you may not be getting enough creatine in your diet, just because you're not eating meat. But I guess Sally touched on the energy systems, which maybe...
Oh, it's probably a good time to talk about. Now that we're talking about creatine, it's definitely...
Yeah, so another one in the family of creatine is beta-alanine, which is another really popular one with athletes. And, that kind of acts like a lactic acid buffer, so you can perform a bit better in some of these endurance events.
Beta-alanine is so interesting to me. I love that supplement, and it's a supplement that not a lot of people... They might have heard of it, but it might be... 3rd, 4th, 5th on your supplement list, of things that you're going to get. But for me, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And especially for sort of those sports that do go a little bit longer. Talk a little bit about beta-alanine, because people don't know a lot about it, and I think it's one of the most underrated supplements out there.
For sure. So beta-alanine is it helps your body increase the level of something called carnosine, which is basically a lactic acid buffer.
Not to be confused with carnitine.
No, carnosine. When your muscles are contracting, lactic acid is a byproduct of this. It's a byproduct of some of your energy systems. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Lactic acid has very important functions when it comes to muscle function, but this is what causes your muscles to almost feel like they're not contracting enough, and these.
So they're becoming acidic.
So they're becoming acidic. So buffering this with beta-alanine has been shown to have some performance enhancing aid by keeping it in this less acidic environment.
Right. So
so it allows your muscle contractions to continue. So maybe we can expand on energy systems and muscle types, because a lot of people aren't very familiar with these kind of things. So obviously you have two types of muscle: fast twitch and slow twitch. Fast twitch type 2 or slow twitch type 1. It's not really how fast they contract. The speed is actually how fast they fatigue, right? Fast twitch fatigues faster. Slow twitch fatigues slower. So slow twitch is better for endurance training, endurance exercise, I mean. So, running a long distance, things like that. Fast twitch is better for more power and explosive things. So I guess it really depends on your sport. And if you can think of it as almost like the gears of a car, right? So, as you're driving a car, in gear 1, your aerobic system, how the energy systems feed into this aerobic and anaerobic phosphagen system, it depends on the type of muscle you're using, right? So slow twitch fiber, aerobic. So basically, all your ATP demands, your energy demands, can be covered by this muscle. So imagine somebody going on a marathon race, right?
Do you run like that?
Yeah, this is how the last time I did cardio. This is how I did it. All the energy demands can be covered by aerobic system in your type 1 muscle, because it fatigues much slower. As you get into more powerful activities, like Sally talked about the anaerobic system, this is where glycogen and glucose is much more important, because this glycolytic activity, you need to release more ATP, right? More energy. So the energy demands are higher because, type fast twitch muscle produces a lot more force than slow twitch muscle, right? So, if you think about a sprinter, sprinting isn't how fast your legs move. Sprinting is how much force you generate against the ground, moving you forward, right? So, when you go into sprinting and higher intensity exercise, Sally talked about exercise that typically is less than like a minute's burst. That's when your anaerobic and your phosphagen system come into play, and these release a lot more creatine than, a lot more ATP than your aerobic system, right?
And creatine helps to produce ATP in the body.
Yep. So creatine is fundamentally important for your phosphagen creatine system, right? This is your absolute most explosive system, right? But it has the lowest capacity, right? It'll only last for 10 seconds, like a 100-meter sprint, right? Going below that, that's when your anaerobic system comes into play. Something for about a minute or so until you're out of your ATP stores. Yeah,
it's good info.
Well, hopefully it didn't bore you.
No, it's exciting for me. It's probably bored everyone listening. No, it's super important. So to summarize, game day nutrition probably is don't change things up too much is one thing we learnt from Sally. Continue with the normal foods that you've been eating.
Don't try new things on game day. So many people just fall into that trap. And like we talked about, it's so easy just to try something, just to take it to the next level. But, sometimes the risk might not be worth the reward.
Yep. So make sure you're getting the right type of carbohydrates on the day of the game.
And leading up to the game. Not too much fiber on the day of the game. So fiber's good in your regular diet, but when it comes to game day, like Sally said, you want these carbohydrates to be absorbed faster, and fiber can slow that down.
Yep. Approximately 3 to 4 hours before the event, have your meal, and light snacking before that if you feel like you need something else. Plenty of water.
Yep.
Look at your electrolytes potentially based on how long your event goes for, and look to incorporate creatine beta alanine, potentially pre-workout if you like that extreme sort of focus and energy, and then obviously a good protein meal
so,
after the event.
Yeah, protein after or a few hours before, like Sally said. You
Yep.
want that amino acid availability in your muscles to make sure that they're not breaking down, and recovering between exercises adequately. So, and
Beautiful.
what about fat? I guess fat on game day, it takes a lot of energy to digest fat. So, potentially could be avoided. I know there's a lot of keto guys out there, and aerobic respiration, which we just talked about, actually uses fatty acids as the main source.
The keto guys though are generally fat adapted.
Yeah.
They're not going to just go keto the week of their event, and all of a sudden their intake of fat just goes through the roof, and they're generally going to be training weeks, months, years in advance, and they become fat adapted.
Exactly. So, if you're training keto and you know how you respond to fat, like how Sally said, if you're training like that and eating like that for training, compete like that.
Yeah.
Because, then you know what works. And game day is probably not the best day to experiment and go keto for the first time.
No. So, let's use you as an example. You've got a powerlifting comp. What are you eating? The meal before the comp? How far out?
I religiously eat Subway before every single powerlifting comp.
Jeez. Okay. I shouldn't have asked that question.
Well,
what do you get?
Well,
what do you order from Subway?
Think about it. It's the bread.
I'm thinking about it.
The bread, the nice sweet chicken teriyaki,
Oh.
protein in the middle.
Is that real chicken though? In that?
I don't know. It tastes good enough.
Tastes like chicken. Everything tastes like chicken.
And a little bit of salad in there. I don't go overboard on the salad, but
So you're getting carbs, protein, and a little bit of low fiber salad.
Yeah. So basically, it sounds like I've been doing the right things over the years.
But,
my very first.
Is that a superstitious thing for you now? It sounds like it's become that.
Well, the first ever time I did it, Subway was just my go-to, so I just had it, and now like Sally said, I don't want to mix things up. So I just stick to what I've been doing, and I like me some Subway, even if a couple of times I had a powerlifting comp at a new location and hunted for a Subway nearby. Lucky it's always around, but
don't judge Dhiren for his meal choices.
Haven't competed in a little while, but next time if I do, we'll have some Subway for sure.
And supplements?
Supplements. I'm a pre-workout junkie when it comes to lifting heavy. I just can't get to that level without pre-workout and some rap music. So,
are you adding any additional creatine or anything like that, or?
No. Typically I have creatine every single day.
Right.
It takes a while for your creatine levels to get to where you need them. So, having it just before a game day isn't going to help immediately. If your blood levels of creatine aren't high enough. Same thing goes with beta alanine. When you take beta alanine, you feel these tingles. You think it's working straight away, but actually it takes about 24 hours for you to have enough muscle carnosine, like we talked about, this lactic acid buffer. So a lot of people do have it immediately before, but it's actually important to keep maintaining that level.
What is that tingly feeling? Like a lot of people go, oh, I get itchy. What is that?
Yeah, so it's called paresthesia, and it's actually activation of some of your nerve endings. So you feel it in your extremities, your lips, your fingers, things like that. We used to prank each other and put it in our coffees and things back in the lab.
I've seen people snort it. Ridiculous.
Yeah. What about you? Jiu-Jitsu. What's your
Jiu-Jitsu?
Game day nutrition for a fight?
Well, Jiu-Jitsu for me is mainly night times. Well, nothing changes for me.
Do you ever have pre-workout before Jiu-Jitsu?
No. I load up only because I don't before in Jiu-Jitsu I like to stay nice and calm and breathe and flow.
Equanimity.
That's it. And but I do load up on intra-workout, which is all your essential amino acids. I put a little bit of creatine and some electrolytes in a water bottle. I sweat a lot during jiu-jitsu, so I'm sort of just sipping.
Definitely don't want to wrestle with you.
Mate, everyone sweats a lot. You can't avoid it. So that's basically it. And then I'm making sure that I'm getting protein straight after. Electrolytes for me are important because I do sweat a lot.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a spoiler alert. Musashi's got a good electrolyte product in development coming out soon.
Yeah, actually, we've developed this in conjunction with one of our biggest sporting partners, which is the America's Cup Team New Zealand.
Yeah.
These guys are some of the most elite athletes on the planet, right?
Yeah, whether you like sailing or not, a lot of these guys have come from different sports over the years.
We're talking Olympic cyclists and things like that. And, these guys, the amount of energy that they're putting out on the boat, like their training sessions are insane. They're getting smashed by the wind out on the water, and that actually evaporates your sweat really quickly. So they actually really need to be on top of the hydration. So we've worked with them to develop this electrolyte formulation, which is coming soon.
Sneak peek coming soon. We'll have to have a podcast talking about it. I think it's a pretty cool product. Yeah. Let's lighten things up a bit and look at some sporting events. Let's do it. How you been, Hal? Good. You've been quiet today. No. What's going on? You're over there coughing? Still getting over COVID?
What you're talking about, I'm fine.
Okay, good.
So, what's been happening in the world of sports, Hal?
First of all, we've had some new news since then, but the first article is about Mike Tyson being offered $1 million to fight an Australian football trio.
Mike Tyson back on the pads. Did you see it?
I saw it on Instagram.
The Tiger King is back.
Everyone is posting it, and he looks good. What is he, 53 or something? And there was talk. I think we spoke about it on one of the last podcasts. There was talk of him getting back, doing some training to do some exhibition bouts. But someone in Australia, I think a promoter that had worked with Mike Tyson in the past, is offering up $1 million. But I don't think $1 million. Tyson wouldn't get out of bed for $1 million, I don't think. But they're talking a fight with Gallen or Sonny Bill Williams.
It'll be interesting, but
imagine.
No, 50-year-old Tyson will
no
eat
disrespect to Sonny Bill and Paul Gallen, great athletes, and across multiple sports. But
Iron Mike was one of a kind.
A 53-year-old Mike Tyson eats both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
I also saw a bigger offer has come in for Mike Tyson. I think it was around $20 million, $30 million to fight in bare knuckle boxing.
I saw that. Yeah.
I don't know how true the rumors are, but
against Shannon Briggs apparently.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. I'd love to watch that.
What would you get punched in the face bare knuckle by Mike Tyson for $30 million?
I'd do it for $1 million. It's life changing.
Yeah, life ending.
Yeah. It could be life ending. What would you do? Would you fight him for $1 million?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'd do anything.
You've heard it. Dhiren would do anything for $1 million.
I mean, what's a fight? It's going to be over in 5 seconds, idiot.
Yeah. Look, Gallen, I think, is pretty excited by it, and I don't know why anyone would be excited by the prospect of fighting Mike Tyson.
Barry Hall's name's been thrown around as well.
Barry Hall?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'll probably cop a lot of shit. There's
everybody thinks they can fight.
Everyone's divided on that Barry Hall and Paul Gallen fight too, but I think Barry won that fight.
Mike Tyson has a pretty awesome quote. It goes, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Well, that's true. We talk about that a lot in Jujitsu as well. It's like, because a lot of these sport Jujitsu guys sort of get complacent and it's just a game of Jujitsu, but they're not worried about getting struck in the face.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of Jujitsu guys, when they do get hit, their Jujitsu game goes out the window. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting.
What else, Al?
Yeah.
NRL players are being forced to sign a vaccination contract.
Dhiren, what are your thoughts on this?
I think this is a good idea. It's super important. Vaccination is the greatest advancement in medical history. So maybe antibiotics, but vaccination is very, very much.
So what's the story? The footy's back, rugby league is back. They're saying to everyone that to participate in the competition, you need to get a flu shot.
No, they're not saying that. They're saying you have to sign the waiver. You're able to say no to a flu shot, but you have to sign the waiver saying that you either agree to it or that you are not going to do it.
But they're not letting anyone.
No, they're saying everybody needs to get it. And I think it's because, COVID is out here. And, if you want to restart sports, you have to be on top of everything medically and put everybody in the best position they can. But
why? Why a flu shot when it's COVID that stopped the competition? Why are they saying, you need a flu shot? It's got nothing to do with the current situation. So what about previous years? Well, did they make them all get a flu shot last year?
No, but it wasn't. It wasn't part of the.
What's it going to do? It doesn't prevent coronavirus.
Yeah,
so
but
what's the point?
The flu has similar symptoms. You don't want players getting the flu, and then as soon as you have flu-like symptoms now, you have to go get tested for COVID.
Look, I'm not anti-vaxxer, so don't ring up and kill me. I
get the flu shot every single year.
Some vaccines are valid, right? And we talk
all
about this. We talk about this, but I think some are valid and some are personal choice.
Yeah.
And I think the flu shot should be a personal choice. If you are someone, I spoke to my wife about this yesterday. We've been together for a long, long time. I don't think she's ever had the flu. So why would she, who hasn't had the flu in the 15 years, 20 years that I've known her, why would she go out and get a flu shot now?
Well, you see, vaccination doesn't work on an individual basis. It works on a community. It's this community immunity, right? That's, this is how measles has basically been eradicated in most of the world. Only America has it because people...
Measles I get. Polio I get. These things I understand that vaccinations are important. When it comes to the flu, I had the flu last year.
The flu is a virus that just evolves like other viruses, and there's many strains of it. So the reason why it keeps coming is because vaccination isn't completely effective against the flu, but you're still giving the community the best chance of recovering.
So if it's not completely effective for the flu, why should people be forced into using it? Because it's
going to last for hours.
Yeah.
No, look,
it's not completely effective, but it stacks the odds in your favor. So
what are the odds?
I don't
it
know.
works for like 60% of people.
60% of people is a lot of people.
Yeah. Look, I think this has been a big topic of debate, especially in the news at the moment. I don't think these football players should be prevented from playing if they choose not to have a flu shot that has nothing to do with coronavirus.
I think they should. For
what reason?
Because the immunity is the immunity of the whole game of all the players that are in close contact with each other.
Hal's winding us up, but we're just getting started. Hal,
it's not an individual decision. It's for the greater good. The greater.
But it should be an individual decision. If I am comfortable that I'm doing everything within my means to build my own immune system, and I am prepared. Look, I'm taking this risk that I might get the flu. I'm confident that I'm going to build up enough antibodies as a healthy, fit, young athlete who is eating the right foods and making the right choices. I'm pretty confident that my body can get over the flu on its own. And guess what? Your body does get over the flu on its own.
People die, and people will continue to die from the flu.
But they're mainly 80 plus.
No. So, okay, I'll give you another example. So say it's not an NRL scenario. It's a hospital, right? And you need to get a TB vaccine, right? Yep. Which is, not everybody has. So, what if you say, no, I don't want to get a vaccine because I'm going to build up my antibodies naturally. And, I'm just going to, be in this dangerous environment where I'm in close contact with people. But, it's okay because...
Like I said, some vaccines I'm all for.
What's the difference? Not everybody dies from TB.
Hardly anyone dies from flu.
Thousands of people die every year from the flu.
I get it, but not young, fit athletes.
Not young fit athletes, but, you can easily give the flu to your family just like COVID. It's not about...
So if you're saying it's compulsory for them... Why wouldn't it be compulsory for the whole of Australia? Why just them?
I think it's because they're close contact, and they're trying to get...
But you and I are in close contact.
Yeah, and
I'm in close contact with all the people I roll with every night.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not at the moment, but...
But, they're trying to keep the sport going under this strict circumstances.
Look, if it was a...
And you're stacking the odds in your favor, so...
If it was a coronavirus vaccination, I'm all for it.
So next in the news...
We could probably go on all day, and I guess it comes down to, look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I believe in them. My children have been vaccinated. The flu shot, I think, is optional. I've never had it, and I'm 140, and I'm fine. Next topic, Hal, before we get too crazy with this debate.
Game of Thrones actor breaks the world deadlifts record.
Thor.
This is crazy.
The great Thor deadlifted 501 kilos.
The mountain.
Yeah. He beat Eddie Hall's record of 500 kilos.
He made it look easy too. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it. And, he did it in a home gym with, he did it with a legit judge and things watching. But
home gyms are harder. Less crowd to motivate you. You're just at home. You just probably got off the couch.
Yeah, but, it's not a competition environment. But none of these strongmen, actually Eddie Hall's one was, but... it's a bit different. I know it's a bit controversial, but it's a feat of strength that we've never seen before. There was 501 kilos.
A bit of trash talking from him before it too. Him and Eddie.
Yeah.
Do they not get along? Or?
You should watch a little documentary on Netflix about it.
What's it called?
The Strongest something.
Who's Eddie?
Eddie Hall.
Eddie Hall.
He's generally regarded as the strongest man in the world, but Thor might have that title now.
Was he there?
No, they're in isolation.
At his home.
So they were just trash talking?
No, Eddie Hall deadlifted 500 kilos.
Yeah, right. But they were just trash
like last year or the year before.
Yeah.
And then they've competed head to head before in strongman events.
And
so.
Thor did 501
Yeah.
easily, a lot more easily than Eddie. He nearly died, didn't he?
Yeah, and Thor, he's done a lot of his training here in Australia as well, right here in Sydney. So interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that. With you. What else, Hal?
Next, Jimmy Glenn, who was Muhammad Ali's trainer, has died at age 69.
I don't-
89,
Age 89, yeah. Muhammad Ali's trainer.
Crazy.
Sad times, yeah. Ali, Ali, Parkinson's got the worst of him, but COVID in these day and age, nobody's safe.
No, I know. It's hearing a few athletes contracting it now. Most are getting over it. Most are fine.
Yeah, some aren't though. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
we don't really know all the complications and things that can
No.
affect it, but
what else? Anything else?
Our condolences to anyone affected by coronavirus.
Yes, obviously.
Well, on a more positive note, there's Dana White.
Dana White.
Sorry, reports that I'm never going to get that right.
You can keep saying Dana.
Uncle Dana.
Dana White reports that the UFC that happened on the weekend with zero attendance was a success.
Yeah, I watched it. It was an awesome event.
It's probably one of the best UFCs ever.
Yeah.
And it was weird without the crowd,
I liked it because you could hear the breathing. You could see which fighter was getting bit more exhausted. You could hear the shots landed, so you could see which shots were more impactful than others. It did take away from sort of the atmosphere of the
The
event.
crowd brings a lot of emotion into it, and
It does.
maybe helps some of those fighters dig deep, like, the end of the Cowboy and Pettis fight when they're standing blow to blow, and imagine how crazy the crowd would be going.
That was a decent fight. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking as I was watching. I was like, how crazy would the crowd be going right now? And it was just silence. But I didn't mind it. It's good to watch. It was a good event. The main event was insane.
Yeah.
Tony Ferguson is a zombie.
He took over a dozen shots to the head that would have knocked anybody else out.
100%. Justin Gaethje hits like he's got baseball bats for hands.
Yeah.
And some of the shots he landed on Ferguson, Ferguson just kept marching forward the whole fight until right at the end.
Yeah.
When he was sort of shaking it off.
And he still wanted to, go to the end. And, he's got a broken orbital bone and everything like that. I just saw he tweeted some samurai wisdom, out here. Musashi, always repping our samurai knowledge. But he tweeted, Bushido code, the way of the warrior. And I don't know if a lot of people know what that means, but the way of the warrior is, there's a Musashi quote that goes, the way of the warrior is resolute, is acceptance of death. So, he was trying to say, he was willing to die in there. This fight shouldn't have been stopped.
It looked like he was willing to die. It looked like he was going to die. That was...
Yeah.
Yeah, Gaethje looked awesome. Landed some heavy shots. Deserves a shot at Khabib now. I don't think they do the Khabib fight.
Khabib and Ferguson?
I think they're going to give it to Conor.
Nah.
Don't reckon?
Nah.
Bigger fight.
Nah, Gaethje, I don't know. They have to give it to him. He's got the interim belt.
I guess. You
So-
never know in this sport, though. It's
Conor versus
crazy.
Ferguson, I reckon. That's the fight.
What about Ngannou, though?
Oh, man. Insane.
What? 20 seconds.
He should be the champ right now, I feel, for heavyweight division. Stipe's been a bit inactive, but...
Stipe's been inactive. I think he's been injured. And then you've got Cormier trying to get him to sign the contract for their trilogy fight.
Ngannou's punching the whole through time. Each punch. And we're close to having 3 champs from Africa, which is crazy.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm a bit mixed on that fight on the weekend. Like, it was an overwhelming pressure and just this strength and ferocity that he just annihilated him.
Yeah.
But his technique was terrible.
It
It looked like a 12-year-old kid in the schoolyard just winging punches with his chin up. He's lucky he didn't get caught on the way in. He's been lucky so far with who he fought some great people and he's beat some great people, but he's been lucky with his fighting style. It's quite aggressive and he does leave himself quite open, but I just think people are just overwhelmed.
Yeah. I think,
He only needs to land one shot and it doesn't even need to be his hardest shot. And you're gone.
A lot of his criticism has been about his technique and, his how he sets up his striking and things like that. But, like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Compare Mike Tyson's technique to Ngannou, though.
Yeah.
It is light years difference.
But, he's a freak of nature. His physicality is just...
I know.
He's just a beast.
And I think that's what gets him through a lot of these fights is his physicality and not so much his technique.
And, we talk about the 3 things we always talk about: technique, physicality, and, psychology. We saw him be psychology flustered in the past.
Yeah.
Psychologically flustered. So, Yeah, interesting to see where he goes from here.
Brutal. Cejudo,
Yeah.
Olympic gold medalist, 2-division champion in the UFC, announced his retirement after beating Dominic Cruz in a controversial stoppage. But look, I think it was all right. When I initially watched that stoppage between Cruz and Cejudo, I thought, no, Cruz is definitely still working his way back up to the feet. But then when you look at the replay, just after he copped that knee, he looked gone. You look at his face, and
You can understand why the ref stopped it. And
it was a good stoppage, I think. After thinking about it and watching it multiple times, I think it was actually a good stoppage. I know Cruz complained, and he's come out and he said he could smell the ref had cigarettes and booze on his breath. So he actually wanted to make a last-minute replacement of ref, but it didn't happen. So
yeah. But Cejudo...
do you reckon it's negotiation tactics?
I think it's a negotiation tactic, but he did talk about potentially going to the next Olympics in wrestling because, he's already got Olympic gold, so...
Why would... Yeah, I guess that would just be for personal. There's no monetary gain. There's no monetary gain.
He's already got 2 belts in the UFC. 2 belts, 2 golds. It's something Cejudo would do.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a ploy. He's at the height of his career. He's still relatively young. He's getting better with every fight. Not a lot of competitors left for him.
Yeah.
I think he should take a couple more fights, cash in, get a new contract.
I think Demetrius Johnson should come back and fight.
Ooh, he's probably the only guy that...
Well, he's
would
beat
have
him
a
once
chance.
upon a time, so yeah.
Listener questions, Hal. Have we got any this week?
Yeah, I've chosen a couple juicy ones.
Juicy.
First from Max Stern. If I'm trying to increase the amount of chin-ups I can do in one go.
Chin-ups, did you say?
Should I be training with weighted chin-ups or try to max out on my stats? At the moment, I can do 8 in a row, but I want to be able to do 15 to 20.
So you can do 8 chin-ups, wants to be able to do 15 to 20.
So-
asking to choose between
So he wants to know between weighted chin-ups or max out on sets. And this is actually what he's asking is this intensity or volume that I should be focusing on, right? I think we've talked about in the past. Intensity, if you're just going heavy all the time, might not get you that far. I'll give you an example. If you can do 8 chin-ups at the moment, imagine having a lot more volume and not going to failure. Say you can do 8 in your first set. Second set, you might be able to do 6. Third set, you might be able to do, 2 or 3 because you're fatigued. But, if he goes and tries and, breaks it down in a sub-maximal range before hitting this 8. So say he does 5 sets of 4. Like I said before, 8 plus 6 plus 2 is what? 16? Okay, say 6 sets of 4. Possible, right? 24 reps. 16 reps plus 24 reps. Now,
All at body weight.
yeah. So I suggest not going to failure and trying to get build that volume. It's like a basic strength training program, 5x5. If you're trying to get strong on the bar, maxing out all the time isn't going to get you there.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on the individual. Probably chin-ups is one of the hardest movements to do. It's probably my worst exercise, to be honest.
I love chin-ups.
I'm bottom heavy, legs and ass and everything. I'm very bottom heavy. I struggle with chin-ups, so I can relate to this question. And it's probably similar. Like I want to be able to do 15 to 20 chin-ups. And what I did, and this is just personal anecdotal, I do a couple of sets at body weight, 8 to 10 reps, whatever I can get, and then I do another 2 sets weighted, and I'm trying to get as many reps as possible. I usually start with 10 kilos weighted, get as many reps out as I can. It might only be 5 or 6, and then I might increase the weight again. I might only get 3 to 4. And then I might increase the weight again and only do 1. And that has helped my chin up phenomenally. So when I go back over time, when I go back and I do body weight every time, the first couple of sets are easier and easier each time. I think because I'm adapting to that greater load so that when you go back and do your body weight chin ups, it makes it a hell of a lot easier. Obviously, like to get good and to do it, you'd want a full proper periodized program.
Yeah.
But this is just anecdotal for me.
And actually, a good way to do it is probably, start with what I'm saying, this higher volume, and progress towards that,
Yeah.
And that's actually, replicates a lot of strength programs. So you start with a higher volume, lower intensity, progressing towards a much higher intensity. But,
Yep.
The specificity of it, if you want to do more reps, which means doing more sets.
Doing more sets.
Yeah.
What about, there's a lot of those chin-up machines now. What about doing some body weight, getting as many as you can, and then quickly jumping onto a assisted chin-up at a really sort of light assistance level to squeeze out an extra few?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another good way to overload. But another way for beginners is, to do negative chin-ups. Jump up to the bar and slowly go back down. And, that's how, because a lot of people don't have that initial strength to do a chin-up. But, descending on a chin-up is, almost anybody can do that. And just having a controlled descent will, get these motor patterns going and...
Banded chin-ups or another one?
Some foundation strength, yeah.
Yep.
Plenty of variations you can do, but...
Yeah. Any other listener questions, Hal?
We have one from Ali Mora. How many Weet-Bix?
None. None.
What's the most you've ever had?
16.
What?
Back when I was early 20s. And I'm not a fan. I see Weet-Bix written into so many nutrition plans and programs, and I think there's so many better forms of carbohydrates to eat than Weet-Bix. I mean, wheat would be one of my lower choices for carbohydrates, and I don't know why it gets written into so many nutritional programs. Well, I mean, is it just an easy breakfast? I'd much rather recommend oats.
Yeah,
than wheat.
I guess touching what Sally said before, try and get higher fiber foods on the daily. Things like oats have a bit more fiber, significantly more fiber than Weet-Bix.
Yeah.
But then, on comp day, on game day, how many Weet-Bix? Maybe Weet-Bix are a good choice. They're a fast digesting carb source.
There's other fast digesting carb sources that aren't wheat.
They are, but I don't know.
Sweet potato, certain types of rice, much more easily digested. Better forms of
everybody has their preference,
They
but,
do.
I'm not a Weet-Bix guy at all. So.
No.
How many Weet-Bix? None.
And then you got to pour all that milk on top of it, which is generally full of sugar.
But if it's game day,
that's
kind of what you want. But
yeah, again, there's better types of simple sugars that you can be having.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, how many Weet-Bix? Yeah, none for me. I would never recommend. Never.
Yeah, never.
I have 5 Weet-Bix.
Every day.
That's why you're. Maybe we're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
Hal's 8'9", so
I'd rather have a banana. Yeah.
But not for breakfast, either for dessert. Not before bed.
Hal's a freak of nature, so he eats 18 protein bars a day in the office. You have to lock them in the cupboard.
out of stock in here. No more questions. That's it. Anyone that wants to submit a listener question, you can do so at podcast@musashi.com, or you can DM us on Instagram, Facebook, any of those platforms as well.
Get a free t-shirt.
Free t-shirt if you leave a review as well, and submit a question.
Mystery quote, Hal. Let's play my favorite game.
Oh.
The greatest thing about tomorrow is that I will be better than I am today.
The greatest thing about tomorrow is that I will be better than I am today.
These are too hard, Hal. They're so generic.
Who said it?
Better than I am.
Somebody that lost, clearly.
Okay.
Any hint? Very, very straightforward hint.
Yes. Was that I couldn't tell whether you were swinging a tennis racket or a golf club then.
Okay, I'm going to go Tiger Woods.
There you go.
Gave it away when he swung a golf club.
Yeah.
And is probably Tiger Woods is the only golfer that anyone in the fitness community knows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Have we got a Musashi quote, Dhiren? I know you've already brought up one Musashi quote, which is a record for you. Usually you're 6 quotes deep at this point in the podcast.
Well, actually, I brought up 2 because, I brought one up when I was talking about Tony Ferguson as well.
That's right. I'll retract that then.
So, yeah, this one's a really good one because, it kind of relates to our what we've been talking about today. So if you're not progressing along the true way, a slight twist in the mind can become a major twist. This must be pondered well. So obviously, Musashi, if you're not progressing along the true way, a twist in the mind, switching things up on game day, going back to that can become a major twist. A slight twist can become a major twist.
It's funny. I saw this a lot when I was doing a lot of competitive bodybuilding. Guys and girls would diet for 8 to 12 weeks leading into a show. They're eating clean as possible, frequent sort of meals, no cheat meals towards the end. They're getting super strict. They're getting the shape of their life. You see them the day before the event. When they're weighing in, they look awesome. And then for some reason, there's this group of I saw it mostly in or most bodybuilding actually. There's a lot of guys that go out and eat pizza, or they'll have a cheat meal or a junk meal the night of, thinking that I'm going to get all these sort of extra calories in to carb myself up so I look fuller on stage. I've seen that go wrong probably 95% of the time for people. There's the select few that it works for, but it's like, why change things up? Why not just, if you're looking to carb up and feel fuller for the show, why not just increase
the carbs you've been eating?
The carbs you've been eating for the last 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah,
why all of a sudden do you need to go out and eat a pizza? So,
pretty good example of exactly what Miyamoto was talking about all those hundreds of years ago. A slight twist can easily become a major twist.
Stay on the path. Stick to what you know and what you've tested.
Yeah, don't take a new katana to a sword fight.
And what if you do want to play around with nutrition and things like that? It's probably best to do when you're off season or when you're training.
Self experiment in training. You can. That's the best way to gauge it. Not when the stakes are high. Comp day, you don't want to roll the dice like that. Practice self experiment outside of comp day, and then maybe you do discover things that do work.
Yeah, I encourage people to try different methods, but
100%.
definitely not on the day of you competing.
Yeah. All right.
I think that'll do us for today. It's a good podcast. Interesting having Sally Walker from the New South Wales Institute of Sport and the Australian Olympic team on. She was awesome. It's every time we catch up with her, we're learning something new. We do work very closely with some Olympic athletes, and we are the performance partner of the New South Wales Institute of Sport, so we do work closely with those guys, and we appreciate her coming on. Any final words of wisdom, Dhiren?
No.
That was a letdown, wasn't it?
No. I think I'm out of wisdom at the moment.
So you've used it all up.
Yeah, all used up. And awesome episode, and thanks Sally for coming on. That was full of wisdom always.
Until next time, we'll catch you guys soon.
Yeah, Musashi out.